Ah, yes, it's time for Rita's revolutionary roundup of things. I was trying to think of another. There morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Oh, if I turn you up, not turn you on, turn you up.
Turn me up. Yeah, that sounds great.
Yeah. How are you doing? You okay?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Good. Well, last week we had a technical issue, and I have to say I have fixed it because otherwise people wouldn't be hearing you. And I used the Birmingham screwdriver to fix it, the universal fixing tool of old. It's called a lump hammer.
I mean, hitting and unplugging and switching on and off tend to be my three sort of go-tos when it comes to technical stuff. So, well done.
Yes. Anyway, we're back. Anyway, so listen. This week, what would you like to talk about? I know you did tell me, but I'd like you to put it in your words, because obviously you with the people you deal with, you cover so many sort of different subjects and different personalities that lead you to certain conclusions. So, what have you learnt that you'd like to put forward this week?
So what I wanted to talk to everyone about this week was something that's sort of come up a few times with people that I've been speaking to, which is sort of how to deal with feeling overwhelmed. So I think, at the moment, a lot of people are just in general feeling overwhelmed, whether it's rising bills, whether it's sort of dealing with trying to balance back in the office and at home, whether it's weight and health, whatever it is, there seems to be sort of a sense of it's just overwhelming. And how do you actually break out of that cycle? Because essentially overwhelm causes immobility.
Yep.
You get stuck, you just stop, and it's almost like there's so much happening that you're seeing a million and one things coming at you, tugging on your energy, needing your response, or needing your time and attention, that you don't know where to start, you don't know how to start, so you stop. And then as soon as you stop, that's where the cycle of overwhelm really takes hold, because I'm sure we all know that getting going again is always harder than just maintaining momentum. So one of the biggest things is really working out, A, how not to stop in the first place, and B, if you have, how do you start the momentum of life, going again? It seems to be something that's been a bit of a struggle from what I've been sort of hearing from various different people.
But isn't it strange? In as fact, what you're saying is that when people they get stressed and they get overwhelmed with, like you say, the bills, the weight, whatever it happens to be, that's a lot of momentum that's prevented your natural rhythm, your natural momentum, isn't it? There's a lot of stuff coming at you all in one go, and you tend to want to shut it all out. But of course, you then have to find that way to start again to get your own rhythm back going again. And is that the difficult part? Is that the finding that next step to move forward?
Yeah, so overwhelm comes from inaction. That's all overwhelm comes from. When we are acting, regardless of how we are acting, we don't feel overwhelmed because we know that we are doing something. And it's almost like, staring at an escalator, which is constantly going up and up and up, and you stare at it. Once you're on it, you're just moving. You don't need to really do anything. You've just stepped on, and just the process of taking that first step moves you forward. So it's about, when you're overwhelmed, essentially picking one thing. We've spoken about this in terms of weight and health, but it kind of applies to every aspect of life. Is that most time when we're overwhelmed, we go, right, I've got to do all of this. So there's a list of 20 different things that need my attention that I need to do. And because we've created such a large mountain, the idea of actually overcoming it seems too much. So it's about taking one step. When you feel overwhelmed, even if that one step is putting on some exceptionally loud, uplifting music and having a dance around the kitchen and just getting some energy going. Whether that one step is essentially getting up off the sofa and moving your ass, get out the door, get some fresh air. Whether that one step is, everyone's got that friend who's really overly, annoyingly energetic all the time. And they're always positive and they're always happy and it's awesome. And sometimes you're like, can't you just see the negative, but they can't. They're just overly enthusiastic.
Yeah.
Call them. What an awesome person to talk to when you're feeling overwhelmed and you can't start and you're feeling in that negative spiral. Find that person who can lift you up. Whether it's I had a client who felt quite overwhelmed just by sort of everything going on in her life. And it was, okay, well, just one thing. What would be better today than yesterday? Okay, going for a walk. That's one thing, but going for that one walk starts essentially the energetic ball rolling, because when your energy is aligned, it means that who you are now is aligned to the desires that you want. And overwhelm stops that alignment happening. So it's choosing one thing that could create an escalation of movement.
Okay, well, so you say it could be going for a walk, could be getting up and going to make a cup of tea, or going in the garden, or it could be any, but it's individual to that person, and it works for that person. And I've been in the situation myself a few years ago when I had mental health issues, and I found that, and somebody asked me to try and describe it. Well, that was difficult, but the way I managed to try and describe it was the fact that my head was a sponge, and it was full up with water, but people kept trying to put more into it, and I couldn't turn it off, and that kind of thing. Different information that I couldn't distinguish, and I did find a way eventually to try and stop, just to do this, like you say, one thing at a time. And there's a lot of people who try and fly around and do so many jobs. They try and fly around the house, or they go and see friends or whatever, and they're trying to do too much within a short amount of time. And is it better for them to just push that to one side for a minute and do something for them? Is that the better way of looking at it?
Yeah, so it's kind of dependent on what the source of the overwhelm is. So there's a very big difference, obviously, as you having gone through it, between sort of a mental health, struggle and overwhelm. They're sort of two different areas. And it depends what the area of overwhelm is. It could be, is the overwhelm coming from, let's say, work? There's too much on at work. I can't get it all done in my day. So one of the things that, myself and another client worked on was, okay, it's overwhelming. I can never get it done. I can never switch my laptop off. I never feel like I can leave work because there's too much. So essentially we put in a boundary of 6 o'clock is end of day. And at 6 o'clock, do a checklist. One thing, that's it, one checklist. And that checklist is all of these tasks that haven't been completed. Can they wait till tomorrow? If the answer is yes, you can forget about them. Put them on the list for tomorrow, and you don't have to go home thinking about them. If they need to be done, fine. Get it done, move on. At least that means when you get home, you haven't got that constant fret of guilt. I'm not finishing that task, because you've given yourself permission in that moment to either tackle the task or move it to the next day. If the overwhelm is coming from financial elements and knowing that debt and finances are building up in the background, and you just keep going in the hopes that somehow it will disappear. So what one thing can you do? How much can you each day? And I find it quite good on a daily basis to how much can you put away? Is it £1 a day? Cool. Let's start with £1 a day. People who can't seem to get into the rhythm of saving then try and save too much. Right. I'm going to put all of my money into savings. Oh, now I can't survive. I'm going to take all of it out. Oh, I can't save. And they just end up spending it. So vicious circle. So it's, okay, can I save £1 a day? Get yourself a massive calendar. And each day you save £1, put a big cross on it. And keep that chain going. You never want to see that chain break. And then if you can save £1 a day, then what can you put that towards to pay off debt? Can you then save £2 a day and start to build up?
Yeah.
If the overwhelm is coming from health and weight, well, you don't need to start exercising 7 days a week, and you don't need to cut out everything. Choose one thing that's better. When I lost my 5 stone, the first step that I did was I just concentrated on drinking 1 pint of water in the morning when I woke up. That's all I did for like 2 weeks. I didn't change anything else. And I started losing weight just by doing that.
Just by drinking water?
So starting my day with 1 pint of water meant that I was less dehydrated when I got to my breakfast. It meant that my sort of energy was uplifted. I wasn't craving food as soon as I woke up, having a massively high sugar, high carb cereal breakfast, spiking my blood sugar, it then crashing, having a mid-morning snack. Because I started with a pint of water, A, it meant I drank more throughout the day. B, my cravings were decreased. C, I was mentally more on the ball. And so just by drinking 1 pint of water, I started to lose weight. And because I saw this little win, it's inspired me to then go, well, what's my next step? Right, I'm going to have protein at every meal. That's it. Doesn't matter what protein. I'm just going to have some form of protein, because I was living on white carbs, which we all know is probably not the best way to be living. So it's picking one small thing, and whatever that small thing is, knowing that that will give you a win. And when you have a win, no matter how small it is,
you want another one.
You want another one, and it starts to spark. So it kind of depends on where the overwhelm is coming from as to what that first step could look like.
Okay. All right. Well, the other thing is, of course, that and just before we go, because I know you're a busy lady, the other thing, of course, is because some of these overwhelmers could be caused by, and we were oddly enough talking about with people yesterday, targets, whereby customer service has now gone down because it's been replaced by targets, because the company or companies that people are employed by want this done by this time, want this done by that time, want, you must achieve so many calls in so many hours, never mind what you talk about. So for a person who's doing that, the overwhelmers could come because you think that you're not achieving. So somebody who's in charge and in management, who should know better, is actually putting extra pressure on you that perhaps is counterproductive. Do you find that with some of your clients sometimes, the people they work for are putting too much pressure on?
So I think with most of the women I work with, work is always going to be hugely challenging, in the sense that they are, women who are genuinely highly successful in their careers. They're pushing and doing very well in that area, but that comes along with the added pressure of responsibility. The more you earn, the more your title is, whatever you want to call it. It doesn't get easier, it gets tougher, because there is more expected of you. And when there is more expected of you, you expect more of yourself. And one of the biggest issues that I find is actually, yes, target and cutting is a massive issue in one sector of society. The other end of the spectrum is almost over promising. So a lot of women especially tend to maybe promise more than what is expected of them because of their own expectations of themselves. So, a client might expect something in 3 weeks, but that, individual would say, well, I'll do it in 1. And no one's asked them to do it that quickly. The pressure is coming from their own expectations of themselves, because they're in a certain position on a certain pay scale that means they feel that they're not worthy if they're not living up to exceptional expectations. And the other end of the spectrum is, targets are necessary. Business is business, and anyone that says businesses can just, go to the whim of, every single employee has never run a business. You have to make money in order for a business to be able to pay its staff. But you need to understand that people need to be invested. No one's going to do a job 100% of their capability if they're not fully invested in what they're doing. And if they feel that their value is being overwritten by technology, or their value is being undermined by the bottom line, or their value is being diminished because the pay that they get doesn't reflect the job that they do, they're never going to be 100% committed. And you can't, wonder in shock as to why people are moving sectors and leaving certain areas, because they've actually discovered what their value is, and people are standing up for that.
Yeah.
And, you know, you take two employees, one's, let's say, on minimum wage, and one's on, I don't know, £11 an hour.
Yeah.
So that difference is what, £2.50 an hour, something like that, depending on age. So £2.50 an hour, you're spending extra on this person, but this person is 100% committed, is 100% more productive than this one, and they're giving you an extra £7 in revenue an hour, as opposed to the person who doesn't feel valued.
Yeah.
So you're spending a little bit, but you're gaining a hell of a lot more because of the productivity and value that that person feels. So I think it depends where you look, the type of industry, the type of bracket that you're looking at as to where the struggles come from.
Speculate to accumulate. Rita, been fascinating, and I think I'll put you down for Prime Minister, to be perfectly honest. I think you could do that with your hands tied behind your back. Listen, thank you very much for your time this morning. Hope you have a great day, and we'll speak to you next week.
You too. Have a wonderful day. See you later.
Bye, Rita.
Bye.
Bye-bye. Rita Trotter, the health and fitness department that is par excellence. Right.